Hello, hello, hello. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Bent Pages and Bending Bodies. I'm your hostess, Dr. Hannah P. And today we have a special guest. Our girl Leah is back. She's been on a couple episodes now. She's almost like a regular. But before we get into today's episode, guys, please go like, follow, subscribe to this page. This video is available on YouTube at BPBB Podcast, like Bent Pages, Bending Bodies Podcast. Yes. This audio is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And yeah, you can follow me on platforms like Instagram. There's now a new TikTok at BPBB Podcast. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. All right, Leah, how's it going? How's your day?
Good. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having me on
good.
again.
Yes, of course, of course. It's always good to have a nice guest. Hopefully, I haven't heard back, but I'm sure people have loved your previous episode, so they're gonna love this one too, right? Guys, today we're going to be talking about PT school and OT school. So I've been walking you guys through that journey of, what even is physical therapy and occupational therapy, right? We kind of talked about that. Then we talked about, your application process. We talked about the waiting game, doing your interviews, your acceptance, and the rejections. And now you have made it to the episode where we're talking about, okay, you're in. What is it like? So, Leah, let's go ahead and start off. Just kind of tell us an overview. What was OT school like? How many classes kind of did you take a semester? And yeah, let's just talk about that.
Hey, oh, perfect. Sounds good. I was just talking to Hannah. I have to roll back my memory to OT school because I've been out of school 5.5 years now, and so I gotta kind of think back in time a little bit. I'm not like that ancient, I guess, but um, the good old days of OT school. So yeah, so our program was 2.5 years long. So we started in the summer. So we did a summer semester, and then the 2 years of coursework, basically. So our cohort was 32 students was the size. I feel like I'd be curious to hear what Hannah says, but I think that's a little bit smaller than most PT cohorts. But yeah, ours 32. I was in a master's program, so yeah, I wasn't in the doctorate program, so a little bit shorter than if you were doing a doctorate program. So yeah, it's kind of special because you start in the summertime, and our for our course we had to do like our anatomy, like cadaver anatomy, but for the graduate level, and we did that in the summer. So you are supposed to do like cadavers and anatomy A&P like for undergrad, but then they make you take it a step further and do it for one of the first courses in OT school. So I feel like that is what I envision when I think of the very beginning of OT school, because like all our minds are just spinning. We're like down at the anatomy lab. It's like summertime, so like we're like, oh, it's summer and we're down in an anatomy lab. So that was kind of like our beginning there. We're taking kind of some of the very basics. I think we took like biomechanics, anatomy, and the anatomy course with the cadavers. We took like a applied neurology class. So it's like I feel like that first like semester that summer was like drinking from a fire hose. You're also like getting to know other cohort, and that's I think as a general theme, and I'm sure I'll talk about this as we continue to talk, but that's like when you start to become part of your little OT or PT family, because you realizing quickly that you're like living and breathing and spending like 100%, nearly 100% of your time with these people, and you bond really quickly because you're like in this like whirlwind of an experience together, and there's highs and lows, and you're all growing together. So yeah, so and then it's like there was only a week between the summer semester and then like the fall semester, and then they hit you really hard with like theory and going into like starting to go into like group process and um there's all the courses and I was just looking at them, but all different courses that specified a different population. So a lot of the courses over the course of OT school are like targeting certain like demographics. So like there's a whole peds course and a whole like geriatric course and a whole like adults course. So a lot of those courses kind of single out specific areas that you may be practicing in. Um, and yeah, so that was just kind of a lot of information. I don't know quite what you were hoping for in that
No, that
response,
was
but
great. That was
yeah,
great. No,
yeah,
I definitely agree with you. Yeah, that
yeah.
first semester hit
Uh-huh.
hard, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, just like you know, one of the first classes that we take was anatomy. And for me, anatomy was very special because somehow I was not able to, okay, not somehow, I was not able to take a traditional anatomy course like
Uh-huh.
in my undergrad. Like the class was too full over and over again. And it was also like a locked class, meaning like if unless you had a certain major, you couldn't get into it.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up having to take this online anatomy with an
Oh,
online lab. It was awful. But anyway,
oh,
so PT school was like the first opportunity to actually like be in a cadaver lab. And I'm not gonna
uh-huh.
lie, I thought it was so fun. Like I
It's
loved
really
anatomy.
interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was so, so interesting, man. I remember like we had it was a one body to a group of I think four of us, right?
Yep.
And we named our guy. Obviously, we
Yep.
didn't know his real name, but we like named him
Uh,
Hank. And Hank was a juicy fellow. Like he was always he was always leaking on our table. We would like always have to drain stuff. It was so interesting. But anyway, our guy, he was like one of the youngest guys there, like of our cadavers, right? And so what was really cool was that like he still had a really prominent musculature. And
mhm,
that was just good to see because like no offense, but we had
mhm,
some elderly, you know, real frail
mhm,
people where like
mhm,
all of their muscles are basically like atrophied. You don't see
mhm.
anything. And so Hank, man, Hank was the man and he had, you know, he was strong, he had big muscles, big back
Yeah.
muscles. And so I just remember like that was a class I personally really enjoyed. I also like aced the lecture part. Like I'm not even trying to like, you know, brag about myself, but for whatever reason, like I think that's actually the class I knew that neuro was going to be my thing because
Mhm.
like you could like I don't know about right now, which is awful, but at the time you could like tell me in my son, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's such and such nerve. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's such and such.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
honestly, like now that I'm saying it, I probably like don't quiz me right now, but I probably could be like, okay, that's yeah, this is that nerve, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Some of the nerves
Right.
I might get a little like might forgot about, but for the most part, man, I was like
Yeah.
whipping them out.
Oh yeah.
Um, and also I feel like sometimes I have really good like rote memory where it's like I can
Right.
memorize, and then like
Mhm,
anatomy was
mhm.
basically just regurgitation. So you just
Yeah.
like, oh
Yes.
man, that was a class I loved. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's see what else in your first semester. We also had like a biomechanics class. I just
Mhm.
remember like at our school, that class was so, so hard. Like
Really?
or the cohort above was like warning us about our teacher. Like our teacher, oh my gosh, he made it so tough. I feel like not very many people succeeded. Oh, so you talked about your cohort number.
Yeah.
We had 40. We started off with 40.
Okay, so
Then
similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
we gradually lost a couple along the way, but that's okay. But yeah, we started off with 40 and I just remember like I don't think a large percentage of us were like really doing well in that class, you know. So then we thought that the teacher was going to retire. We threw him a retirement party, got him a nice gift. Don't you know he was back that next year teaching to the class under us? We were like, wait a second, sir. We just gave you a going away party. What are you doing? And then what was even worse is that he made the grading easier for the class under us, and he gave them so many opportunities that he didn't give us. And I'm still
Oh,
bitter about that if you
man.
can't tell. But I was like, are you serious? We fought. We fought tooth and nail in this class, man. And like,
Yeah.
look at these kiddos getting away like so easily. Um, what was unique about my program, a couple things. Um, we were a COVID class, right?
Oh, right.
So
Yes.
like our first, so I'm kind of jumping ahead. So like our first semester was hard because it's like an intro to things, right? Second semester was hard because you have tougher classes and you're like really getting, like Leah said, into the like kind of meat of your courses. Well, then so we started in the fall. So that was fall. And then the spring was like the winter, right? And then you have like summer. And so summer is kind of like where we start kind of hearing about COVID, but it's not really
Oh,
thing yet. So we're still like in school. Fall for like half, I think. No, we might have made it through that fall of the second year. We might have still been in school, but it was shortly after that that we had to go online. They were like, okay, guys, hey, you guys have a break real quick. We're like, should we take our stuff? Like, or should we take like, because people lived on campus, right? And they're like, should we take our books home with us or should we like leave them? And they're like, oh no, don't worry. You're gonna be back. You're gonna be back in class. And then like maybe 2 days after we all got home, they were like, actually,
oh my goodness.
and I had an apartment up there, so I was like, you know what, I'm staying up there anyway. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
move all my stuff back home. But man, that was
that's stressful.
interesting. It was so stressful. Like, I mean, not stressful, but I just
Yeah, stressful.
it was kind of stressful in the sense of I didn't feel like I was like learning as much as I could be, right? I felt very gypped also because of my love of neuro. That's a lot when that was a time when we had more intensive neurology courses, right?
Mhm.
And that professor, like I am appreciative of my school, but would I recommend it? Anyway, so that particular professor, he was like not good at technology, like at all. Like did not know how to
Uh-huh.
work it, did not know how to convert any of his exams to like the online platform, whatever that they
Uh-huh.
used, right? He would like be in the middle of a lecture and then he like his whole computer would die.
Oh
And
no.
like we're just like, man, are you serious? Like, and then he would just basically like send us his notes that like made no sense because we couldn't get through the lecture in
Oh
time.
my goodness.
It was very chaotic. And then also what he would tell us was like, okay, we would go over the exam on Zoom, right? And if you fought hard enough about your answer, you can get that point back,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
So he did that once, and like we were like, is he gonna update our test? I don't know. So me, I need these points. I need these points, right? The person that I am, I start like recording, like not like video, but like writing down, like, okay, this question on this test, this answer, like is correct. You know what I mean? I would just go through and like keep track of all of them because he didn't ever update any of these tests. So like at the end of the semester, I'm like, hey, sir, here's a list of things that you need to change. And because of that, everybody got, you know, a couple points back. And they were like, okay, you know, we feel you. I was like, I got you.
I got
Me too,
you.
but I got y'all, you know. um, yeah, COVID time was stressful, man. Like I don't miss that at all. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Okay, so you mentioned that your program was 2 or 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And I
Okay.
also did a weird version. So I did a combined bachelor's to master's
Ooh,
route, but I did the full 2.5 years of the program. I just was under a different like classification technically. But
cool.
the
That's
but
cool.
combined bachelor's to master's is pretty rare, I feel like at this point. So you're basically the first year you're completing your credits for your bachelor's degree, and then the second year the credits go towards your master's degree. So you come out at the end with your bachelor's one year and your master's the following year. But
Very cool.
again, very I would say the minority as far as programs go, overwhelming minority is just the master's degree, and then more now the
Right.
OTD, entry level
Yeah,
doctorate.
that's
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, that's good crazy, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, ours was 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And they're like 3 continuous years, kind of like how you said 2.5 continuous. So we had a kind of a version of that, the bachelor's to master's program.
Uh-huh.
I didn't do this, but I think a couple PT schools have this. We
Yeah.
had a 3+3 program.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was like undergraduates, you have to do at least 3 years of undergraduate school. And
Hmm.
then
Yep.
if you're pursuing PT, you could kind of like slide
Yep.
into the
Yep.
PT program. And
Yep.
then you would like for your first year PT school, that's actually like your fourth year undergraduate. So you have a
Exactly.
graduation and then, but you're still in PT school for the remaining
Yep.
2 years and then you'll have your doctorate. So
Exactly. That's an
yeah,
exact equivalent. Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I think, I think a couple schools have it. I don't know. At least my school did. My school was also interesting because it was a religious school.
Uh-huh.
And not that I like minded that, but
Yeah.
I minded like paying for that in
Yeah.
a sense, just because okay, so like I had applied to different PT schools
Mhm.
and some of them had like affiliate, right? They were like the Jesuits or the this or the that, whatever, but like that didn't really like that wasn't really a part of their program. And
Yeah.
I guess just somehow I didn't, as I was like looking through the curriculum, I just really missed the fact that they had like actual like religion classes. And I was just like,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, it was like once a year. So like
Oh,
every year we would have, except for like our last year. So maybe it actually wasn't our last year. So we had like at least 2 or 3 religions classes.
yeah.
And I kind of just wish like, could we just make this a like a 5 hour seminar
Yeah.
and kind of keep it moving? But
Yeah.
that was a big thing that I really didn't like, only because I felt like I had missed out on other information that could have
Right.
been like applied. Like
Yeah.
that could have been another neuro class, like in
Yeah.
person. That could have
Yeah.
been, just different
Right.
classes that would have kind of made me a better clinician.
Yeah.
Instead, the first class was like world religion and like all this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly like Christianity because it was a Christian school, but
Huh.
kind of like this world religion class. And then the second religions class was like, how can we apply religion in healthcare? And
Hmm.
I'm like thinking, I feel like I would barely be able to like keep up with the personal, like professional,
Yeah.
like, patient professional relationship, right? Like
Right.
asking about somebody's day, like all that small talk. Like I feel
Hmm.
like, especially in PT, as you're queuing, you're working, you're doing a lot of
Oh, yeah.
stuff, it's kind of hard to like build a rapport sometimes with people and
Yeah.
find out more about their personal life unless you're like on a break, right? Unless you're
Right.
like sitting,
Yep.
drinking water. So tell me about
Yep.
yourself, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or like if you're
Mhm.
stretching, But like if
Yeah.
we're like doing work and you're like, breathing
Yes.
hard up the stairs, I'm not going to be like, so how's your sister? Like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to
exactly.
do that.
Yeah.
So I guess in my thinking, I'm like, our teachers who were clinicians have been telling us like how like quickly time goes when you're in a
Right.
session. So no offense, like unless this really pertains to the patient, why do
Yeah.
I need to learn about how to apply somebody's fate? You know what I mean? And it wasn't
Right.
even like it wasn't direct solution, like not
Yeah.
solution, but it wasn't like direct advice, like for this religion, do this, for this
Yeah.
religion, it wasn't
Right.
even that. It was more
Right.
like write a proposal for a patient that you would, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm worried about my research class
Right.
and,
Right.
statistics, like all doing all this stuff. And you want me to write a paper? I thought I was done with
Yeah.
papers. Like not like
Right.
like those kind of like,
That kind of, yeah.
essay, that kind of
Yeah.
paper. I thought I was
Yeah.
done in undergrad. But you want me to write a paper about like 5 different ways that I can include somebody's religion like into their session or something. And it had to be, meet a certain length. And it just like felt like busy work
Yeah.
at the time. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oops.
Anyway, that was a tangent, but 100, I'm a person of faith. Do not get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Right. And I feel like even today, there are things like that if I see that you identify with that make it easier for you, then
Yeah.
I will like say that thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, if for example if somebody practiced Islam and like they wanted to do, I would definitely use like floor transfers, I mean I might use their religious like, hey, like let's
Yeah.
practice, I mean your prayer pose or whatever, let's
Yeah.
practice da, 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 because
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
therapy, it can still count for a lot of different things. I'm
Yes.
not saying that I don't know how to involve somebody's religion. I'm
Yeah.
just saying I'm not going to go out of my way to find out if you don't
Yeah.
share that with me. You know what I mean? As a
Right.
patient, I'm not going to be like stretching you. So, Sally Sue, how's your relationship with
Yeah.
God? Like,
Yeah.
I just feel
Exactly.
like that's
Yeah.
just a little bit out of my, like,
Yes. Yes.
out of my
Exactly.
scope, my
Right.
profession, and it felt
Yeah.
like that class like tried to make us like we had to prompt that conversation
Yeah.
versus like the patient telling us. And
Right. No, that's very unique. Like that's
yeah,
very,
it was interesting.
I went to a state school, so yeah,
It was
no religion. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, kind of moving on. Do you remember what a typical day was like in OT school?
Yeah. So usually, ours were, I mean, it's kind of it's a very unique scenario, not like undergrad where you're going to all these classes with different people and you're moving buildings and you never have the same people in the classes. It's really unique because you're in with the same group for all the classes. So sometimes we'd be moving rooms, or sometimes the professor would change and we would stay put. But basically, I think you would have like sometimes, and usually they're like long classes because sometimes they'll have like a lecture component and then like a lab or sim or like
Right after.
hands-on component, right? So I mean, I think I'm trying to think back to a typical schedule. Again, 5.5 years, but that's neither here nor there. But so like for example, you might have a morning where from 9 to 12 you have a course, 2 hours of it are lecture, and then an hour of it is lab, and then the afternoon you have a 2 hour course, maybe a 15-minute break, and then a 2.5 hour course, and then you're done. So that, I mean, that might be, but you're with the same people for 8 hours basically, with maybe a lunch break in between. And then the other thing is even before you get to the end of the program where you're doing your full-time internships, or in OT school we call them field work. Once a week we would have what we call in OT field work 1, where you spend an entire day at a clinical setting. So oftentimes a week would look like 4 days of in class, in person didactic slash lab, and then the 5th day, maybe a Wednesday, would be everyone going to their respective clinical sites. For us, we didn't do a fieldwork 1 the first regular semester. Like we didn't do fieldwork the summer semester. We didn't do fieldwork the very first fall semester of OT school. Basically, the first 6 months is us just like getting our feet, getting our head like in the game of like, what's an OT? Why am I here? Like all that nitty gritty. And then following that, we were starting to have once a week that like fieldwork 1. So yeah, it's just a lot of like in the same room with the same group of people, but the course itself is changing. You're like, okay, we're taking this hat for this class off and we're changing to a different one.
Yeah.
So it's unique in that aspect where it definitely doesn't have the same vibe as undergrad where you're moving classes and going to random parts of the campus. So
Yeah, no, I would definitely say PT school very, very similar.
mhm,
Like you said, your morning could be, 1 to 2 classes, or, probably like 2 to 3 classes in
mhm,
actuality. But like Leah said, it could be a lecture, then you have, 10 minutes, and then you're right into the lab. Like
mhm.
for our school, it'd always be like pretty
Right.
close to right after that lecture. In our first year, I think that a lot of our labs were like the whole class, but then
Yeah.
we did start splitting up. So it'd be, like A through whatever, and then
Mhm,
the
mhm,
other half
mhm.
of the class. And so it's like you are hanging out with the same group, but then
Yep.
also that smaller same
Yep.
group. And so
Yep.
it was
Yep.
really interesting just to kind of see what kind of like our school, we kind of had a little couple of cliques going.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see which friend groups really developed out of
Yeah.
that. And it was also like really cool to see like friendship groups that even if
Mhm,
you weren't in the same lab, that kind of still like
mhm,
lasted over
mhm,
that.
mhm.
So um yeah, we would sometimes have like lab days, so days that were just kind of heavier on lab versus other days that were, more that lecture didactic
Mhm,
component.
mhm.
um we typically had school or classes like 5 days a week. I think as we moved along in the program, we might have had Fridays were shortened, or maybe that was how it was in general. Fridays were usually a shorter day, which was awesome. But overall, class like throughout the week. We also had these little things built into our schedules called like TBDs, or like to be
Mm.
determined. And so that was a time for like if you didn't get far enough in your lecture, like a teacher could reserve that
Oh,
time. So it's already built into your schedule,
huh.
but they could block that time to like make up on things. And of
Yeah.
course, that same neuro teacher that I was talking about that didn't know how to work Zoom and doesn't know how to like work through his lecture. He would use that time all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because anyway, he was a
Yeah.
character. He was a great, great teacher. Like if you can get
Yeah.
him to class on time, if you can keep him on topic, he was a
Yeah.
great, you know. Those
Yeah.
first two things have to come first. But anyway, um, yeah, like you said, that was pretty much our time. And then our last year was a year of rotations, what we called
Oh,
them,
right.
for your field work. Yeah, rotations.
Yeah.
And I don't like how it was set up, but we had two rotations. Then we had to come back to school for
Oh,
like a semester. And then you had your last two rotations, which I was like, can we just do that class before or right
right.
after? But anyway,
Right.
um, yeah, so our first two rotations were 8 weeks long apiece, and then we had one for 9 weeks, and then our last one was 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I remember like the first two of them, I stayed around like
Mhm.
school because like I said, I had an apartment. So
Right.
it just kind of lined up to when my lease was going to end. I was like, I'll just stick around. And then my third one was actually at the facility where I did the residency. And then the fourth one was all the way in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And like, whoo, that was a drive.
Yeah.
That was a long, long drive. And I remember we had to come back to school after that because of graduation and just kind of final wrap up thing. So I
Yeah.
remember I finished my last day of my last rotation down in Florida.
Mhm.
The next day, I took the board exams,
Ah.
another test I do not miss at all, but I took the boards. And then the following day, my mom and I drove from Florida back all the way up here. And it was so, so long. I think it took us like a day. Maybe we think we spent the
Yeah.
night there. So like 2 days drive to get back up. And then I was like, there for graduation and everything like that. Oh my gosh. But whew, the things that we do, the things
Right.
that we do.
Right.
Did you happen to do your field work around your university or?
Yeah, so I was really lucky. And so with for OT, yeah, ours is structured a little differently. We have those 1 day a week fieldwork ones that are interwoven throughout the entirety of the didactic year. And then our program actually did it where you graduate at the end of the 2 years, and then everyone goes off on their separate paths and never sees each other again, essentially, for the last 6 months. So it's a 12-week rotation for you do two 12-week rotations for fieldwork too. So yeah, you kind of graduate. It's like a fake graduation because we're all like, we're graduated. And we did the whole thing, but we still had 6 months of fieldwork.
Right.
So it's kind of like in ceremony only, but we were getting blank diplomas. Um but that allowed us to like all go our separate ways, different
Yeah.
states. People were going back home and different placements. But I actually stayed in the area where I went to school out in Washington, and both of my rotations were there.
Oh, wow.
So I like really lucked out with that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice, 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 nice. Okay, kind of moving on. Any like fun moments, anything that you can kind of look back on at OT school and be like, man, that was actually a blast. Like I kind of miss that.
yeah, yeah. I think let's see, a couple different things. I don't know what the equivalent, and this is something we haven't talked about in this conversation yet, but we had our occupational therapy student association. So we call it Student Occupational Therapy Association, or SOTA.
Okay.
And I know there's probably an equivalent for PT, but so I did the first year I was just a regular like SOTA member. And then the second year I was actually like the president of SOTA. So I was like
Mhm.
responsible for like organizing like volunteer things and our meetings, and we tried to collaborate with PT too, so that was kind of cool. So I think just having that opportunity to like rally the forces and identify community things that we wanted to insert ourselves in. Like we did like a food bank volunteering event, and we did like a joint, it was like a canned food drive, but we did it as a competition with the PT schools to see who could like bring the most canned foods. So that was fun. And then we also like collaborated with the occupational therapy, so the CODA program that was locally at the community college, and did some stuff with them. So it was just kind of cool, like looking for ways to join in. But I would say ultimately, just like that becomes your family. Like the
Yeah.
32 people, you're spending so much time together. Built some like really incredible friendships through OT school. And even 5.5 years later, there's some select people that I am still super in contact with. Like I go and visit them out in Washington yearly. I keep really close in touch with them. So I think it just takes the opportunities you had to make friendships in undergrad, it just takes it to the next level, because you're in this like shared bubble of this shared experience, and you also are all passionate about the same goal that you're working towards. So I think I mean at the end of the day, like we all came out with this knowledge and this experience, but I think the friendships and the like connections we made through it was probably one of my favorite takeaways, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
definitely agree. Like you said, you have that group that you really hold on to. You know, I have a group of
Yeah.
ladies who we don't always just like to text, but like when we do, we're
Right.
just like, what's up, girl? Like, how have you been? I think now, since it's been kind of recent since we graduated,
Yeah.
not too recent, but I think we're still kind of all like trying to find our ground, our footing, if
Right.
you will, as
Yeah.
clinicians.
Hmm.
And so life is busy and it's hard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but we're talking about like reconnecting and like getting together and all of that kind of stuff. So you mentioned being on like the student body.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, we had one of our cohort members, she was like super into it, like loved
Yeah.
it, would always like tell us like great stories about like meetings she
Hmm.
had went to and participated in, which was
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
I we had a huge like council membership, like
Yep.
they're not,
Hmm.
there were like literally 12 positions open. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's
there's
the
only
same
like
thing.
30 of us now.
Yeah.
Like,
Half of the cohort.
yes, half the class. And
Mhm.
some of them were
Yeah.
like two people, like there were two parties. Like one
Yeah.
was like, the head, a female sports coordinator, the other was a male sports.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just like there were so many different titles you could have,
Yeah.
but I was voted as like the social coordinator.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I was like, okay, I could do that. And so then in my second like time running, I had a partner too. She was
Oh,
also
cool.
the social coordinator. And
Yeah.
so one memory that was like kind of stressful but also really fun is we got to plan our like student banquet. And
Uh-huh.
so
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, this is like when, everybody comes back and we're you like we get all dressed up and everything. So like we had to like find the venue, make the menus, like all of
Yep.
this, like run a budget.
Yep.
We were going to go over. So like I hosted like a fundraiser to try to raise some money so we could
Mhm.
like all of this
Yes.
stuff, right? To be
All
able
the
to
things.
pay. Yeah, all of the things.
Yes.
And it turned out to be so nice. Like
Yeah.
everybody was like dressed to impress. Like we had
Yes.
little like stations. Like somebody in our cohort had a great idea where like you put it's just like a, cheap, but it was great. It was like you just put the
Yeah.
picture on this bag and like you can write like really good, memorable things, whatever, just like fill somebody's cup up and like make them,
Yes.
you can read all like the compliments or all the stories people have to
Yeah.
write about you. We just had like a photo booth station, like all this like different stuff that we
Fun.
our
Yeah.
technology into. So that was like a huge success. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
we were a part of that. We did that.
Yeah.
We also hosted like a superlatives, and
Oh,
we would
cool.
I like found these like mini trophies on Amazon. And so like we would announce the winner, like, oh, this is
Right.
superlative, and like we'd give them
Yes.
trophies. Yeah, I think, and it was like all like PT related stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like mine was like most likely to refer out because like at that time I was like, oh, if I ever have a pregnant patient, like I am not touching you. Like I don't want any lawsuits against me.
Yeah.
I don't want her to be like, she hurt my arm and now no. I'm referring you to a different person. Or
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, it's just like an inside joke at the time. I'd be like,
Yeah.
refer out. Like that would just be like
Yeah.
my go-to answer for things. And so that was the one that I won. We also had ones like most likely to drop a patient in the first 6 months, which is like awful, but so funny.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, like we just like had all these different ones,
Yeah.
class related, PT related. So in that way it was super fun.
Yeah.
I feel like my cohort, we started getting closer like towards the end of everything. And I think it was because like I don't know. I think the setting was kind of new to like to a lot of people. We didn't really know like, are you cool? Like, can we trust you?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
because the thing was, okay, I already said that my school was Christian, right?
Yeah.
Even though you are well of age, you are not allowed to drink. Like
Oh,
in
interesting.
trouble for drinking. And so I think that a lot of our classmates were like, I don't know if I should hang out with you. Are you gonna
Yeah.
tell the program director on me? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
no.
Yeah.
Then
Interesting.
like as time we were like, oh, you drink? Oh, cool. I drink. Like little
Yeah.
hidden parties. And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so after that, we would like get a lot closer. But
Yeah. That's so cool.
I know
Yeah.
it was, yeah, just kind of looking back, it was like, huh, interesting. But yeah, I think that the superlatives, we did like at the beach, we had like ordered pizza. Like I just thought that that was just like a fun, summer vibe because our school was like right along a beach, which was nice.
Yes.
Um, and then yeah, the banquet was really, really fun. Oh, at the banquet, okay, sorry, last quick story. But at the banquet, this is also when people started finding out the results of their board exams. So like
Oh, wow.
yeah, oh my gosh, talk about stress, right? So like up until that point, I had been like a crackhead. Like I'm checking literally every 5 seconds. Like I'm
Yeah.
refreshing my screen over and over
Yeah.
to see if I pass this thing because
Yeah.
I had like done all the prep, like I had taken like practice exams, time
Mhm.
myself. Like I'm really
Right.
like trying to like, get this thing because I had a lot on the line. I
Yeah.
was applying to that residency program
Right.
and
Yep.
I had to pass this board on the first
Yeah.
time because guys, if you don't
Oh,
know, the boards are only offered 4 times a year, right? And so at the time, this was like in July when it was offered, and I had to petition to my school to take it early because they didn't want our class to take it until the October round, right? I
oh,
had to petition on
wow.
XYZ reasons why I need to take this exam
Mhm.
ASAP Rocky right now, right
Right.
down in
Right.
Florida. And the like offer was accepted, thankfully. So they opened up
Right.
the test so I could register for it because your university has to do that. They have to open it up. You can't just go out and pay for a $600 test if you want to. um,
OT is different, I will say.
Okay, no. Yeah, well, yeah, they had to open it up. The test was $500, and
Mhm.
then you have to pay $100 to just take it somewhere. I was
Nope.
like, huh?
Nope.
What? What kind of sense does this make? Oh my gosh. Anyway,
Yes.
so yeah, right. So I had to take this board. I had to pass in July because the residency started in September. And
Right.
for the residency program, you have to be a licensed professional
Yeah.
to work with these individuals, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I don't pass the board, I won't be licensed. And like
Yeah.
residency that I got accepted to. Oh my gosh. So I was literally a crackhead, like scrolling, reload, right? And so we're at this banquet. It's all nice, right? And then people start checking their, and I had, this is like the one time that like not forgot, but I was like, you know what? Leave it alone. We're having a good night, Hannah. We're not gonna work test. That's not gonna be there, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody behind me was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I passed. Because like other people like might have petitioned or they weren't like had the opportunity to take the test,
Yeah.
right? Oh my gosh, I passed. I was like, they're out. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, you know what? We're not going to check right now. We're not going to check. Somebody else,
I don't want to ruin my night.
yeah, I passed. I passed. Like, so literally just indifference
That's
in the
incredible.
room. People are like, yeah. There's like excitement. And I'm like, Okay, well now I have to check. Like I can't like just sit here and
Yeah.
chat. I was like, oh man. But in my heart, I was like, but what if he didn't pass? And then you
Yeah,
have
right.
to
That would be
like
my fear.
you
That
don't
would be my
know
fear.
that you looked. I was like, oh man. So I just remember like I just like took my phone and like my friends knew what I was doing because they could like see, but I was just like trying to like real careful, like reload. I reloaded. I like peeking down. I saw green. I was like, let's go. I was like, they did it. I
Yes.
started crying, man. I was like, oh my gosh.
Best moment ever.
Man, talk about stress. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But whew, 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 whew. Anyway,
You're like
those
reliving
were
it
some
right now.
times. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm right back in that moment. Like, man. And I just remember one teacher, I like she was one of my favorite teachers. Um, I was like already happy, I had like called my mom real quick, like your girl
Yeah.
passed. I sent her like the screenshot, whatever. And the teacher, she like looked at me, she was like,
You
yeah, I swear I did it. And she was like so happy. She shed a little tear or
Yeah.
two with me. I was like, this is why I love you, Man, whew, those were the good times. Those were the good times.
Memories. Yes.
Memories. All right, let's talk about some bad times. What
A
was it
bad time.
really? Yeah, I was like, we're gonna switch the vibe a little bit. We should talk about the bad times first and then the good times.
Then end with the good
But what's the what is something that kind of got you down in the dumps? What is something that you just remember, an OT school that
Yeah.
really had you for a second, maybe discouraged you, just anything that was just kind of a rough time for you?
I mean, I think as expected, it's like I feel like a broken record because we just talked about this at the fellowship, but it's a lot of work. Like
Yeah.
it's I just remember there being times where everyone's stressed, everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's like pulling their hair out and they're like, how are we gonna finish all these things? There's all these deadlines coming up. But the crazy thing is you're stuck in this bubble with all these people that are all having the exact same deadlines for the exact same classes and it's multiple classes. So the anxiety is like contagious. So just runs rampant through the group. It's like one person catches a case of anxiety and then they're all just infected. But so I think I mean I remember there being especially just like any other, college era, right? You get the month of December or the month of like April or November, like as you're getting to the end of a semester and things are just it's rough, but I feel like it's just I think there's a different level of pressure almost when you're in PT or OT school because you're realizing that your future and this dream that you've had to become an OT or PT rides on like advancing, through all of these hoops. So I think a lot of like feeling the pressure and kind of wondering like, am I ever gonna become an OT or am I ever gonna become a PT? I spent a lot of really late nights in our library. I'm someone personally that studies best in like very structured environments, and Hannah and I have talked about this before. But so I spent a lot of like really late night, early mornings in the library where I was just like, here I am, like Sunday night, and it's like 12 at night, and I'm at the library. So, I mean, there's tough times for sure where it's like, this is never going to be over, but then you survive and you look back at it and you're like, well, I made it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I think this was our second year because we were like,
Mhm.
into it. So, your
Yeah.
first year, we felt like it was tough just because of, okay, it's PT school. You didn't know what to
Right.
expect. The workload
Right.
is, it's going to be challenging, right?
Yeah.
The second semester or the second year, excuse me, is tough because you not only have tough classes, but
Yeah.
also there was literally like I wish I could bring out this my calendar at this time
Yeah.
for your
Oh, yes.
agenda, right?
Yes. Yes.
Literally for an entire semester, like after the first like 3 weeks, I think it was, we had 1 to 2 exams, not
Yeah.
like 1 to 2 exams every single week. So it was
Yep.
like you
Yeah.
went from studying one thing, you would take that exam, study the next material, take that exam, study the next
Yep.
material. Take it was like, what?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like I literally went through, like went back and I was like, man, I think I might have burned that agenda or just like
Yep. Yep.
I was just
I
like,
don't even
what?
know.
This was insane. Like, why would you
Yeah.
ever do this to somebody?
Yeah.
Why? And the rule was like, if we had, I don't think we could have more than 3 exams in a day. So like then they would have to like switch days sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, what? I don't know. It was just
Yeah.
insane. It was insane. I don't miss
Yeah.
that at all. I don't miss finals week.
Yeah.
I don't miss finals week.
Yeah.
Those are probably the worst moments, like you said, just kind of you find yourself with a lot of early mornings, late nights.
Hmm.
Also because my school was an interesting school, you could not find caffeine on campus. So you didn't even have that to support you unless you brought your own caffeine. Um, yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. And then you didn't really know how to, or at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but you didn't really know how to vent to some of your cohort members because it's like, yes, we're all in this together, but also can I trust you with
Right.
like this information? Because I don't know again if you're gonna tell the program directly or anything like that. So
Yeah.
eventually we all started like opening up and it was more of this like
Oh,
camaraderie. But like initially also our class was like pretty competitive. And this is like no shade to anybody. Like you could
yeah.
feel that
Yep.
competitiveness. Like okay, after each exam, literally after an exam, we would all like wait in the hallway and we'd be like, so what'd you think? We like be like, so what
Yep.
did you
Yep.
say? And then like I'm afraid because I would be like, okay, remember this question and the answer, the multiple choice of this, or this. What did you choose? And
Right. Oh, that's so normal. Yeah.
I'd be like, like you're stressed because you're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, did I choose that or did I
Did
choose
I
something
choose the
else?
right
Oh my
answer?
gosh. Well, I thought from this part of the notes that it said that, and you're just like going in this like
Yeah.
crazy spin-off. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was like our class, like every exam. So what'd you think? So what'd you think? Like
Yes.
grades
Yes.
post. So what'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? It was like, class, can we calm down? Goodness.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like. Obviously, I've only had one experience in that being OT school at my specific school, but our school did a lot of group work. And I don't know if that's it's just an OT thing or if that's similar in PT, but like we would have, whatever, 5 or 6 classes a semester. And then each of those classes we would have like group work for different things. So I remember that was a struggle sometimes for people because you'd be in like 5 group projects at once with
Like
5 unique groups and you're like juggling like, oh, like we all have to meet. Yeah, I don't know, maybe that's just an OT thing. It's very, and I think that's partly like some of the OT like thought process and like perspective on things is they're really big on like interpersonal skills and group work, but that was one thing that I know was like, what built us into be strong interprofessional workers, I guess, with good teamwork skills. But that was, I think, a challenge for a lot of students. Was like, oh, I'm in 5 groups with different combinations of these different people and we having to meet. So that was just a unique, maybe to my program, but a unique scenario.
yeah, I'll say I don't think in my program, like we had group projects, but not 5 simultaneous at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
You had your big group was like your research group. So that was
Right.
like your
Yep.
core.
Yep.
Um, and then you might have just like smaller group, like
Hmm.
small, but if anything, be like partner type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So like, especially like you and your lab partner have to complete,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
assignment. So in that case, it was like, well, we're going to typically have the same lab partner, or
Right.
we would sometimes like in like my friend group, like maybe like 2 of us usually work together, like you'd switch, but you're still within that same friend group. So it's
Yeah.
still like easy
Yeah. Yeah.
um to meet up. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll say, but my
It's just
program was
different program to
also
program.
pretty unique. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when I was able to be like a that adjunct faculty member in the
Yeah.
residency, I would hear maybe some of their things that were like sometimes partner or group, but it didn't
Hmm.
seem overly so. But that was just like one class that I
Yep.
observed
Hmm.
in. So
Yeah.
it's
And it
hard
may
to
be a
speak on that
PTOT.
end too. Yeah.
Yeah. It may be a PTOT thing. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Ooh, PT school. What a time. I will say for I don't think I ever answered the question about like a day-to-day
Yeah.
life in a PT student, but the one thing I do really love about it, oh, I kind of did. I talked about like, the class schedule. But what was nice is sometimes we'd have like a 2 hour gap between classes.
Mhm.
And so for me, I'm like, ugh, what am I, not to say what am I going to do with 2 hours, but like partly was like, okay, it takes about 15 minutes to get home. So that's like, that's 30
Mhm.
minutes in the car. So now I'm down to like an hour and a half, right? And then I
Yeah.
don't know, sometimes it felt like it was like, I would probably get comfortable
Yeah.
and then have to go right back. Or like, what can I
Right.
really like be productive with? So I would just choose to like stay at school sometimes, like try
Yeah.
to work on something real quick, like in that time, because I know if I'm going home, we're not getting any work done.
Yeah.
So I'd also like go to the gym. And so at that time, I was like really, really big into nutrition. I need to get back to it, but really big into nutrition, like working out like frequently, on the reg. And so those were perfect slots for me to be able to go to the gym. So I would literally sometimes wear my gym clothes to my morning classes. I'd have
Yeah.
that break. I would, work out, get my shower shoes on, like shower there. I had a change of clothes and then like attend my afternoon classes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I just, in terms of, balancing things, I was like, man, I was on top of my game.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, oh, I have to really force myself to try to wake up early or
Yeah.
go after work. And
Yeah.
I'll just say neither has happened just yet, but that was a time for sure.
Yeah.
And I like look back at pictures sometimes. I'm like, see this, if you want to do this again, Hannah, let's get back to it. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
when Hannah was working out in the middle of the day and it was great.
Yeah.
But
That that gives me flashbacks because I was also working out at the gym, but I was the weird one that would bring my textbooks to the gym and then I
yeah,
would sit on the I would like walk on the treadmill and read my textbooks or like sit on the bike and read.
yeah.
I didn't have good balancing of boundaries, but
No,
you
I
know,
left those books where they were.
I would work out at the gym because I was like, I need to work out, but I also need to study. And so that was what I did.
Yeah,
So you're
that's
giving me flashbacks.
no, actually, speaking of textbooks, somebody in our class, this individual, she was so lit. Like she would find the PDF versions of our
Mm,
books,
yeah.
and then upload them to so we had a Google Drive for
Mhm.
our whole cohort, right?
Yeah.
And so we like added everybody. And what was nice, oh my gosh, actually our class, for as clicky as it could be sometimes, like
Yeah.
there were stellar students who really helped us all like achieve our
Yeah.
goal, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
we had we had a texting app. It was like on not like on WhatsApp, but
Yeah.
some platform like that where it was like basically a group chat with everything.
Nice.
And so like people would be like, hey guys, reminder, such and such test is coming up, or like, hey, reminder, such and such assignment. They would just kind of keep us on,
Yeah.
somebody was like, oh, like the babysitting app. I was like, listen, if this is you can babysit me on this case, okay? Tell
Right.
me exactly.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't want to
Keep
miss
you.
anything that's coming up because I am too busy sometimes or
Yeah.
don't even want to know, what I mean? Just like, okay, that's coming up, cool. Let me just put that on my schedule real quick
Yeah.
because I might miss it, right? So I appreciate that app. And then we
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
a Google Drive that we were all added to, and it was like by semester. So you could just go on this Google Drive, like they would post notes, they would post like,
Nice.
if somebody gave a handout, whatever. And then one individual, she would like retype people's notes. So it's like one
Wow.
of our teachers, their notes were not good. And so she would just like retype them up, like
Wow.
structure them. She was also a really good artist. So she would like have her own little designs in there. And like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, like she went above
Above
and
and beyond.
beyond. It was so awesome. And so then somebody else in our class found, like I said, the PDFs, and she would upload all of those. So then we didn't have to pay for textbooks. Like you just had the PDF version of
Wow.
the book. Man, these people, they really helped through. They really helped us through. Shout
Yeah.
yeah, like that was lit. That was lit. That they really helped out for real. Like I was kind of thinking back to all the things.
Yeah.
Oh, and then sorry, another thing. So the same one of the girls who would like retype the notes with the pictures and everything, right? she did something so incredibly dope. So I don't know if you guys have like an equivalent in OT school, but in PT
Uh-huh.
school, particularly in my program, we had this like major test, right? Called like the OSCEs or something.
Hmm.
And what it was is at the time it was like 18 or 19 different stations that you do, and they mimic clinical scenarios, right? And it's to see if you're ready to go on your clinical rotations. So like
Oh.
you basically have like 8 minutes per station.
Hmm.
Like you would read your card, it would just be like a little description card. You had like
Mhm.
2 minutes to like read that, start formulating your answers, all that kind of stuff. And then like on the 2 minute mark, you go in and you start interacting with this patient. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and you have to like, there are certain questions you have to ask, or like, so it might be like a station just about like range of motion, right? So you just
Yeah.
like measure correctly and give your answer.
Yeah.
Or it could be like trying to find, emergency, what am I trying to say? Like trying to find abnormal results, right? So like you had a person, you were like, there was a station where you had to like suspect that this person had a DVT, right? And so
Mhm.
you had to send them out. If you did not send them out, you would like automatically fail that station because it was kind of clear, like,
That's
refer
scary.
this
Yeah.
person out,
Yeah.
like this, misrefer out. So I caught it. But um, so and then it was like, okay, this person has returned from the hospital. Like now what's your treatment, right? We had a station
Yeah.
where like you either had to do like some of the like therapeutic interventions. So like whether that's
Yeah.
e-stim or ultrasound or anything or traction. There was a station about that. Yeah, so you just sort of like literally bouncing
That's
around
super interesting.
under
Yeah.
a station where like at the time we had to like it was like facial palsy or something that we had to
Mhm.
do, and then we had to like figure out which nerves were involved. So it was
Wow.
just like, yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty intense. We had one where it was like a cervical, like you had to like basically look at somebody's neck, find out where the restriction was, and then
Mhm.
how would you like, we didn't actually like manipulate this person's neck because that would be 30 people doing
Yeah.
that. That's not good.
That's
But
terrifying. Yeah.
you just have to say like this is like explain like you're technically like my upper hand is moving in a sow while my lower hand is moving in a whatever. I don't even
Yeah.
remember those terms now because I don't do ortho, guys. But anyway, especially not the neck. Oh no, no, no.
That's
But
scary.
yeah, we just had like say like which hand was moving and like how we would be like how we would perform the maneuver. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was a pretty intense test, right? And you had to
Yeah.
like pass so many stations. Otherwise, you have to
Wow.
mediate, right? And you're not supposed to go out on your rotations until you
Wow.
pass that certain number of stations, right? Well, this individual who retyped the notes and did the picture, she organized a practice version of this.
Wow.
I mean, like, what?
Wow.
What? She was
She
so
sounds,
dope. She's gonna be big things in this world.
yes. I was like, she sounds like
Things.
a freaking
Big
rock star.
things. Yeah, she definitely was, man. Like yeah, so she did a like organized this whole practice round. She wrote questions just like the
Oh
test,
my gosh.
right? I was like, I can't even get that far, but she did all that. She like held us accountable, so it'd be like a timer would go off. Like everything was like trying to simulate this test as much as possible. It was so cool.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and so I appreciated her for that because again, that
Yeah.
was a
Yeah,
good
you lean on like different classmates like strengths and if people have bring different things to the table and yeah, for sure.
yeah, man. Yeah, we definitely had some people looking out for us. Definitely some people. So
Yeah.
it was nice. Okay, well, I think that we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about
We
the
did,
schedule, we
yeah.
talked about kind of what to expect. Guys, obviously each program is going to be a little bit different, but yeah, this is kind of like an overview of, what PT and OT school is like, some of our stressors, but also the really rewarding moments, right? Because yes, it's going to be a tough program. Yes, there are going to be nights where you're up late, like we said, mornings where you're waking up early trying to finish things. But in the end, like it'll be worth it, especially if OT and PT are your passions. I feel like the assistant programs are probably similar, right, Leah?
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah.
think that the structure is similar. Maybe just with the PTA school, instead of 3 years, that might be like a 2 year or 2.5 year program. Do you know how long the program is for codas?
I think it's like, yeah, a year and a half to 2 years, maybe. I should have looked that up,
It's
but
okay.
it's an
Yeah. So it's
associate's
usually like a
degree.
year or a semester or two shorter than the actual program.
Mhm.
Um, did you guys have to do, real quick, did you guys have to do a research project in
Yeah.
OT school?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, we did like a capstone, that, and it was kind of, there was part of our coursework the last year of um the program. And then we also, ours ended in what was an oral examination. So it was like an hour where there's a panel and you're like being like, you're going through an oral presentation, but then also being quizzed and asked all these questions by like a panel. So that's how ours ended too.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had something similar. We would a capstone, we gave
Mhm.
our like final presentations. Like that was
Mhm.
like your last like big
Yes.
didactic component to do. And then yeah, we had a panel of, of our professors who would like ask us different questions, not questions based on our research. Unfortunately in my school in our class, because it was a COVID class, we were not able to actually perform the research ourselves because
Yeah.
it would
Right.
involve going into spaces and risk of COVID exposure. So we actually had to use the data from the class of
Mm-hmm.
us, which was just
Yeah.
kind of wah, wah. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like it could have been a really cool project.
Yeah.
I just feel like I kind of tuned out once I heard that, like, oh, you're not even
Yeah.
doing it. You're just doing
Right.
everything based on somebody else's. I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
just basically retelling the same story then, because like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing different that we're saying, and
Mhm.
there's no new research, So
Yeah.
anyway, in that sense, I kind of felt gypped for that. But it was an easy kind of presentation.
Yeah. There you go.
Like we start off with a group of four, and then for whatever reason, two of our groups like got combined. So it went from four
Oh,
to
interesting.
so I was like, great. Like that's
Yeah.
a better way to share the workload for sure. So
Right. Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
yeah. So, Leah, any advice for our future OTs out there? Any advice that you can give them as they're entering school, while they're in school, before they graduate, anything like that?
Let's see. Well, if people haven't already figured out, I'm a very like relational connection type person. So, I mean, I think my comments would be, and I think I had alluded to it before, but it's just um don't be afraid to like find your people in OT school, PT school. Like they're gonna be the ones that are your like warrior buddies as you go through this shared experience. Like I think and two, like trying to like bond and make good friends with as many of the people like in your cohort. Like this is an opportunity to be surrounded by people that are all passionate about the same thing you are. Like before in undergrad, maybe you were in like a biology class, but may have been surrounded by people who are all going for different degrees and have different dreams and different reasons they're in that like general biology class. But it's really unique because in OT or PT school, you're in the same room with someone who's also shares that same passion with you. So I think finding your people, making connections when you're out in your fieldwork experiences, um, really being a sponge. Like I feel like we talk about that so much as a student, just in classes, but as a fieldwork, like being a sponge, like taking it all in, take advantage of the experiences you have with like clinical educators is what we call it for fieldwork educators is what we call it for OT, but asking lots of questions, like not being ashamed to seek out like mentorship from other people. So I think just more all like connections and experience I feel like are just take advantage of where you're at and be a sponge, I guess is kind of my parting remark.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that especially when it comes to your clinical rotations, that is this
Mhm.
place where you really want to excel, show your skills because guys, these are the people who potentially could hire you, right?
Yes.
I think that, going into the residency program that I chose, having been a student there, it was
Yeah.
just another connection to show that, hey, like, hey, I'm
Yep.
serious about attending
Mhm.
this particular program,
Yeah.
at that facility. But also, had they had a job opening, I could have potentially maybe gotten a job there because I was a
Yep.
student. Or
Mhm.
actually at my current facility, my coworker, she was a student. It was her last
Mhm.
rotation, and
Yep.
then they offered her a job.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
these are places where you really do want to excel. I think that, it's really easy if you're in a setting that you don't like, that you're kind of like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to try to get
Yeah.
by. But no matter what the setting is, no matter how you feel about that setting, like still
Mhm.
go out, and try your hardest, because again, the connections that you make, you
Mhm.
just never know where that could lead you. And it could lead you, to a job, or just a stepping stone,
Yep.
or someone, your CI, like Leah said, your clinical instructor, they could, give you a letter of recommendation to a different
Mhm.
facility, to a different program.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't, like, so example for me is when I was in Florida, I had to work acute care, and that's where I learned acute care is not for me, like at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the individuals who wrote me a letter of recommendation was my clinical instructor
Yep.
from this facility. So
Yep.
even though I didn't like the setting, you don't have to make it known that, like, I'm not going into this, whatever. So I'm not going to try hard. Like, no, still do your best, because these people can still do you a solid later on. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, absorb, learn as much as you can, because if you're actually heavily involved, sometimes you might say, like, oh, this is different than what I thought it would be, right? Like, this is actually a little bit different than I thought initially going into it. So let's see, any other advice I would say, guys, also something kind of practical. um Try to get your work done Monday through Thursday, right? Like, try as hard, your hardest to get your tasks done Monday through Thursday. That way you can still relax on the weekend. You're not spending your whole Saturday, Sunday
Mhm.
cramming for something.
Yeah.
I think for the most part that worked for me, probably about, I would say half and half. I think initially, um I did a pretty good job with, like, just kinda easing that workload and just kinda just maintaining it within the weekday.
Mhm.
Obviously, as life got busier and that semester where we literally had 1 to 2 exams every single week, there were
Yeah.
definitely times where I was like, "No, I cannot afford to take this Saturday or this Sunday off."
Yeah.
But find time for yourself too. So, my time to myself was going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Without my books. And just kinda letting loose. No, I'm just kidding, Leah. But just letting loose, in that respect, finding time on my own time. This was a time when I did not work. So, high school, undergraduate, I had worked throughout both of those. In undergraduate, I actually worked multiple jobs, like 3 jobs at once, and went to school. So, like, I knew a thing about a hard work, right? But in PT school, I was like, "Look, this is my job right now. Like, I'm not going to be working.
Mhm.
I just really wanna focus on my studies. I just really wanna focus on my studies, you know?"
Yep. Yep.
And so I would just, when we weren't in class, I wasn't studying, like, find moments of, like, fun things you can do. My
Yeah.
town
Absolutely.
was super small, so there wasn't much fun to be found, but if you went about 30 minutes away, you could find a beach, and so just, like,
Yes.
doing something like that. Or 30 minutes away, there was a different college town, and, they have, like, more stores, just more things to
Mhm.
do. So even if that was
Yeah.
by yourself or hanging out with some of your cohort members, like, just finding something to do that's not school related, just to kind of refresh, recharge your energy. That way you can be, present and soak up the knowledge you need to while you're in school, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Such good advice.
yeah, thank you. I think the only other thing I wanted to say was just that, guys, OT school, PT school are umbrellas for
Yep.
information, right? They
Yep.
teach you the general, they teach you kind of like the basics, the nitty gritty, not the nitty gritty, but just like the overall big picture of things, right? If there's something that you feel like you want to specialize in, then you're probably going to need to seek more education in that field, right? So, if you feel like from your classes that pediatrics, peds is something that you really identify with, then try as your hardest to get a pediatrics rotation, right? To really dive in there. And then any other extra thing that you can do to find out more information about peds, whether that's a residency program or whether that's, working at a different facility or being a tech somewhere. Just try your hardest to seek more education in that route, because
Yeah.
just know that PT school will just give you, or OT school will just give you like the basics of things, right? They will kind of give you these, like I already said, these brief overviews of things, but you're not going to know your niche until you really get into that niche. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just know that
Yeah.
learn a little bit of everything, and then it's up
Yes.
to you to figure out what you want to excel in. So
Exactly. Yes. So good.
cool.
I
All
so
right.
agree.
Well, I think that's really all we have to say, guys. Listen, congratulations already for getting into the school of your choice. You did the hard work. Now there's a little bit more hard work to come up. Oh, sorry, real quick, Leah. Before,
Yes.
so what, like these people just kind of graduated from their
Mhm.
undergraduate programs or whatever, and now they're going into OT school, they're going into PT school. Any advice in that time between your acceptance and when you're
Mhm.
going to school, like how to prepare, or should people prepare?
Mhm. Mhm.
Kind of what's your advice in that interim before they actually get into this graduate program?
That's a great question. I will say, I will preface my response with, because I was in a program that started in the summer, there was 1 week between end of the semester and the beginning of OT school. So there was 5 days of like 7 days off between. So I have a great long period right between. But I think, yeah, just kind of, I mean, I honestly, I feel like it goes back to what Hannah was just saying, like the balance, right? Like really getting yourself like well enriched with all the good things so that you can come in really fresh and really energized and really ready to work hard. And then I think too, I think there's opportunities if you're like have a chance to like volunteer, maybe that's kind of, it's kind of a fun way to continue to get those like OT or PT brain like kind of primed, I guess, in a way, as if you're maybe seeking out volunteer opportunities that are maybe with like a Special Olympics or like adaptive sports or I don't know, like special needs camps in the summer, like things that if you're in the summer going to a fall program. It depends on what program, but just kind of fun ways to kind of get your kind of prep your OT or PT mind, I think is a good way. Or like if you're having a summer job or some kind of summer experience before, like maybe kind of thinking it like, oh, is there a way I can kind of prep myself for going into school? I think there's not a lot you could probably study a lot for, because it's going to be more specific for your program and they're going to teach you what they want to teach you. But like I know at the facility that Hannah and I worked at for the residency and fellowship, there's like volunteer opportunities there and just things that you can kind of get involved early before you're even fully a OT or PT student.
Yeah, yeah. No, your answer is way better than mine, because I was gonna say relax.
I
I was
know.
gonna say I think the
Yeah,
biggest things I just had, like, going out with a banger, because I was like, this is like
yeah,
probably my last free summer. Cause I was like,
yeah,
after PT, like once I'm in PT school, I'm not gonna have any more summers. And then I'm
yes,
gonna like
yep,
graduate school and I'm gonna work,
yeah,
and I'm not gonna really
yep,
have like the
yeah,
summer of like a undergraduate student, and
yeah.
so yeah, my undergraduate school was also along some water, which was nice. And
Oh,
so I remember, like, my friends and I, we rented a boat because they let kids drive boats. All you need is a driver's and a credit card, apparently. But we were out on the boat, just having fun. I just was like remembering, like, man, I tried to make that last summer like filled
yeah,
up with memories and hanging
yeah,
out with friends as much as possible.
yeah.
Just to because I was like, this is the end.
This is the end.
No. I think the only prep I really did was I just re-looked. I think I had to take a medical terminology course before
Mhm.
entering. And
Yeah.
so I think I just re-looked at that book, just kind of going back over like preference, like,
Mhm.
prefixes and just different terms. What does this mean? What does that mean? That way I could kind of feel a little bit more ready. But
Yeah.
other than that, that was the only kind of
Yeah.
prepping that I did
Right.
for it. And then I
Yeah.
just chilled.
Love it. I love it.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything now.
I think we
So
did. We covered a lot.
perfect, perfect. Well, guys, thank you so, so much for tuning in. Leah, it is always, always great to have you on here. Come back anytime. Seriously, I think that listeners like the PT and the OT, viewpoint on things. They like the information from both of us. So it's always good to have you on here. Guys, like I said earlier, go ahead and subscribe to this page at BPBB Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're out there now. You can pretty much find us wherever. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we're out. Bye.